All right, now, Sharri Markson is a lady who is at the absolute forefront of the most honest, forthright reporting about China. The stuff she's been writing in the Australian newspaper and reporting here on Sky News has been amazing. Her most recent reporting, which is around just in the past couple of days, about how many members of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, have infiltrated businesses around the world. Some of the biggest ones that you wouldn't think would be on the Chinese shopping list for influence, but they are, they have, they do. And I love talking to this lady. What a year you've had, mate. While others are cowering in the corner, you are taking on the biggest and baddest, mate. Well done. You are fearless, and I wanted to say that before I talk about anything else. Does it feel like you're right?
That's so lovely of you. Thank you very, very much.
Do you feel like you're right in the middle of it now? Because obviously China, the Chinese pressure on Australia, but also, China moving towards wolf diplomacy. Do you feel like you're right in the middle of the storm because your reporting does nothing but tell us the truth and really annoy them?
I think that the issues we've been reporting on at the Australian are front and centre at the moment. It doesn't feel personal at all. But, the issues we've been raising the entire year, whether it's the origins of the coronavirus and whether it was leaked from a laboratory, whether it's scientists in Australia who've been recruited to a Chinese government program, or whether it's, the current story, which goes to the heart of Communist Party members embedded within Western companies and even in the Australian consulate in Shanghai. These are all really important issues that we need to cover, and the Australian has been taking on this year.
So, OK, let's also clear this up for some people who don't follow this as tightly as you and I do, right? Now, obviously, we're not saying that a Chinese national is automatically doing the work on the behalf of their government. But there's a difference between being a Chinese national who works in a company outside of China and being a member of the CCP. Now, that's what we're talking about, because your loyalty is to the party first.
Absolutely. And it's actually quite difficult to become a Chinese Communist Party member. Not everybody gets into it. And when you do get into the party, you sign a pledge of loyalty to the party. And that means that there can be conflicting allegiances. So even if you work for a Western company, potentially Boeing, which we found in our investigation has a lot of CCP members, and it handles, in the past decade, it's handled $12 billion worth of sensitive defence contracts for the Australian government. It's currently building 2 new aircrafts that will be used as Air Force One for future US presidents. These CCP members can be called on by the senior members of the Communist Party, and we know that President Xi Jinping is the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, to share information that's been gleaned. Even there's been cases in the United States of the theft of intellectual property from both universities and major companies.
Now, it feels like we are starting to get, by getting this information, by getting this insight into what is going on, that it's better preparing businesses to be aware of the influence and our government to be able to respond well on top of this. Now, when these stories come out, lots of noise. Do we see much follow-up where companies in this case have started to say, well, you can't be an employee and a member of the CCP? Have we seen the Australian government try to move to work out what is happening in our embassy in China?
And that's our story today, that we found out that ASIO is starting to investigate this. My understanding is that while ASIO has had a copy of this leaked database of the nearly 2 million CCP members who are all over the world now, mostly in Shanghai, our investigation did reveal that the Australian, the British, the American consulates in Shanghai have all been employing Communist Party members because they have to hire local Chinese nationals from this one government-run recruitment firm. And that firm, we found out on this database, has 12 Communist Party branches and has more than 249 members linked to it. So, that is something that there wasn't potentially an awareness of until we actually got the database to prove that the Communist Party is operating within this recruitment agency. So our understanding, and we reported it today in the Oz, is that ASIO is now looking at it. It's now investigating We've got more stories on this in the following days, including in tomorrow, because it looks like the same situation is happening in Beijing. There's another government-run recruitment company, which, as recently as November, now I'm giving away tomorrow's story, but as recently as November, was placing senior staff in the consulate. So the question is, what information do these CCP members have access to? Is it high-level information? Is it sensitive? Or, is DFAT completely across this and ensuring that locally engaged staff are kept away from the more sensitive areas in the consulate? But at the same time, we've got to be so careful not to be suspicious of everyone who's a Chinese national, because this is just such a small element of Chinese people who are living here. It really is so small. But perhaps it's when people are granting visas, that's when the proper background checks need to happen. And that's why this database could potentially be very useful to the intelligence agencies, because they can see very clearly initially who is a Communist Party member. And it's worth pointing out that in the United States, they're just bringing in right now new visa restrictions that say Communist Party members and their family can't spend longer than 1 month in the States, and it used to be up to 10 years. So they are cracking down on this in a very big way.
Absolutely. Sharri, you're a rock star. You've had an amazing 2020. I know you're going to even have a bigger 2021. All the best to your beautiful family.
Thank you. Thank you for being so kind and so generous and always defending me when we get into hot water through our reporting.
She's the best, isn't she? We love her so much. Of course, you can see her show Sunday nights here on Sky News Live.